The number one seeded Boston Celtics, number one seed in the entire league, they won 64 games this year, won the Eastern Conference by a whopping 14 games, had a historic, only the fifth team ever to win their regular season games by an average of 11 points a game. And so a fantastic season. And here they go against the eighth seed, not only the eighth seeded Miami Heat, Rob, but an eighth seeded Miami Heat that is missing its best player, Jimmy Butler, who's out with injury. And last night in Boston, not in Miami, not when they're up 3-0, not even 2-0. In Boston, game number 2, they lose. 111-101, Miami wins it. And Rob, I got one question for you. Was this something, a big deal, or nothing?
Chris, they were 14.5-point favorites in Vegas. I'm just giving you the odds, and they lost by 10. So that's 24.5
huge
point
upset.
Yeah, huge. Okay, so, but I'm going to say no big deal, and they should win that game. It's ridiculous that they lost the game, but we've seen this before from this Celtics team with Tatum and Brown. Chris, last year, don't you remember when the Sixers came into game 1 in Boston with no Embiid, and they let Harden beat them? Do you remember that?
Yep.
I mean,
that's right.
So they've done this before, and I don't know what it is that they can't focus. And let's be fair. I don't expect them to win every game to the finals. Like, people are going to lose games. If everybody won like that, it would be no fun, right? We wouldn't even be paying attention if they won every game. So they're not going to win every game, but I'm not going to panic. I'm going to say this is par for the course for this Celtics team, and for whatever reason, they lose their way sometimes and lose their focus. It might be the only game that Miami wins. In fact, I'll say it will be the only game that they win, but it does look bad, Chris, when it does happen.
I think it is something you mentioned last year, right? Miami, they did this against Philadelphia in the second round.
Mean
guess what
Boston
also
did
happened
it against Philadelphia?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Boston. Guess what else happened last year? Miami beat the Celtics in 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I am not predicting that Miami wins this series. I'm predicting that not only Boston wins this series, but that they win the Eastern Conference. But you know, Rob, even as I have picked Boston all year to win the East, I've been lukewarm on them. And this is why. Mm-hmm. They're a finesse team. I'm sorry. They're a finesse team. And I think the reason things like last night happened is because they're finesse. They're not a tough team. They don't scare you. They don't intimidate you. They don't put fear in your heart. Nobody's afraid to play the Celtics. They're really good.
Is that because they're a three-point shooting team, Chris? You know
no,
what I mean?
I think it's because they play a soft, in my view, soft brand of basketball compared to what they played under Ime Udoka. Under Ime Udoka just 2 years ago, they were tough. We saw it, Rob. What'd they do to Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving?
They mugged him. Matter of fact,
yes.
I remember Kevin Durant texting 911 after the game.
Yes. This Boston team wouldn't do that. This Boston team would try to outscore him. When Joe Mazzulla took over, it was, man, look, yeah, we're going to play good defense. And they do. But it's not the physical brand of defense that they had under Udoka. And offensively, they just want to outshoot you and drain a bunch of threes. And Miami, while undermanned, certainly less talented than Boston, is mentally tougher and they're physically tougher, even without Jimmy Butler. And last night they did what they did last year in that series. They combined their toughness with three-point shooting. And they hit 23 threes, 23 of 43. Now, they're not going to do that on average, right? They shot 53% from three. That's unheard of. It's happened, but only a few times. But guess what they do against this Boston team? They have nights like that, Rob. 4 of the last 9 playoff matchups between these two teams, Miami has shot 50% or better from three. And they won all 4 of those games. So my point is, look, Boston's fortunate that the Eastern Conference is in shambles. That's what they're right. If Milwaukee were healthy, and I know they didn't look great themselves, even when healthy,
they were at home and they didn't look good.
Well, even and with I'm talking about when Giannis was healthy, they were having some problems, but still, he's banged up. Philadelphia, Embiid's playing on one leg, and Jimmy Butler's out for Miami. So I do think Boston will survive the East. But Rob, their goal is not to just get to the finals. They've been there a few years ago. It's to win it, and I think Denver or whoever comes out of the West will beat this Boston team for the reasons I just said Miami.
I think that's fair. It's hard for me to push back. I just don't want to make a big deal about losing one game.
Yeah, I agree. That happens.
Yeah, that happens. But I know what you're saying about the overall makeup of the team, how they play, and when they come up against some other teams that are more physical and will wear you down, like a Denver, right?
Yep.
That'll wear you down, Chris.
Heck, New York won't be a cakewalk for them because they play tough too.
That's another one,
if
right?
They
in the East. Could the Knicks wind up coming out of the East if Boston plays
I'm not
like
willing
this?
to go that
No.
far.
I still got Boston. I'm with you. I'm not making a change, but I'm saying could it be a sign? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say a bad day. Daddy had a bad day at the office, and that's what happened yesterday, and Miami won't win another game. Now, if Miami wins another game or so, Chris, then I'm going to have to reevaluate it because I don't think that they should without Butler.
I mean, you can argue they should have swept this series without Butler. When you look, Jaime Jaquez,
but you can lose one.
A rookie. But they lost. I hear you. I'm not going to make a big deal. Look, when the Celtics won their last championship, Rob, in 2008, they went 7 in the first 2 rounds.
I remember, did they play Atlanta?
Atlanta in the first round.
I remember that series. I thought they weren't going to make it.
It was close. It was close. And they obviously ended up winning the championship. So I'm not saying, even if this is a 6 or 7 game series, I think it might be 6. But this Boston team, Rob, that's what we're saying is this has kind of been their personality. This has kind of been their habit, right? And I don't think it's good. And so I think they'll survive this series. I think they'll survive the East, but I don't think they're going to win the championship. And I don't treat them, Rob, and I don't think you do either. I don't view them like a 64-win team.
Yeah, for some reason they definitely and Denver didn't win that many games, and we know they won the championship last year, but I have way more faith in how the Nuggets, just the way that they play and do their business, Chris. No lead is safe with them. You know what I mean? You can't run them out the building or make them feel like they have no shot. I love that's a championship team right there.
And look, the other thing quickly before we go to the calls, Boston, we know Rob isn't great in the clutch, right? Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, not great in the clutch. Well, you're going to have a lot of clutch minutes in the playoffs where it comes down to a tight game. And as I said earlier, they were blowing teams out all season. So that's a question mark for them as well.